The Way. Zika Sanchez, a successful 48-year-old merchant, had always dreamed of making the famous Camino de Santiago pilgrimage. With a life dedicated to work and family, he rarely, if ever, found time for himself. After decades of dedication, he decided it was time to make his dream come true. He left his wife, Vanessa, and their 2 teenage children, Tom and Evelyn, behind temporarily to embark on this spiritual journey. Something about that place attracted him. It was like a distant dream, and at the same time very possible. The Camino de Santiago is known for testing the physical and emotional limits of pilgrims. Zika, despite his excellent physical shape, was not prepared for the challenges he encountered. The walk required resistance beyond what he was expecting, patience, and a deep reflection on life. After all, for a long period, it was his own conscience that he would have to deal with. But what made his journey even more complex was the fact that he didn't want to meet many people along the way. For him, at that moment, it was something intimate and deserved peace. For this reason, whenever he could, he took alternative paths. Each step along the way was a mixture of pain and meditation, where he confronted his fears, regrets, and hopes, yet it was a dream come true. Everyone should have this experience, he said to himself. During the second week of his journey, while crossing a remote mountainous region in Galicia, Zika found himself in a desperate situation. A sudden storm surprised him, bringing torrential rain and strong winds. With no shelter in sight and reduced visibility, he lost track of the trail and ended up falling into a gorge hidden by dense vegetation. The fall was serious, leaving him with a fractured leg and several bruises. Immobilized and without means of communication, Zika faced a harsh reality. He was alone, injured, and unable to ask for help. The hours have changed in a survival test. With little water and no food, he began to lose hope. The intense pain from the fracture and the piercing cold of the mountainous night only made the situation worse. In his mind, memories of his family played like a movie, and he, having no other choice, clung to the hope of a miracle. In the early hours of the morning, as the rain continued to fall, Zika had an experience that would change her life forever. Between wakefulness and delirium caused by pain and hunger, he saw a bright light. Initially, he thought it was the light of a flashlight, but soon realized it was something supernatural. For what was before his eyes did not look like a rescue. And suddenly, the light took the form of a human figure who approached and sat beside him. With a calm and comforting voice, the strange being makes himself heard, but Zika quickly realizes that the voice that came from that bright light was heard inside his head, like a telepathic communication. You took your time. You needed to be here. We don't know how much time is left, but you no longer need to waste your time on things that don't connect you with your duty. You will be found. Don't worry. Just live better from now on. Zika, although skeptical by nature, had no way of denying that unimaginable event. Zika felt a wave of peace and warmth envelop him, and very emotional as he was, he could barely see straight. The figure then disappeared and, the light, a few more minutes before disappearing completely, he closed his eyes, feeling an inexplicable relief, and a strong sleep took him. It is not known how long she slept, but she woke up one morning, in the first rays of sunlight. He was woken up by the sound of voices. A group of local shepherds, driven by an inexplicable sense of urgency, had decided to seek shelter on the mountain due to the storm. To their surprise, they found Zika unconscious, but still alive. The shepherds, who knew the region well, improvised a stretcher and took Zika to the nearest village. There, He received first aid and was transferred to a hospital in Santiago de Compostela, where he was finally treated for his injuries. Doctors were surprised by Zika's resistance and the speed of her recovery. While recovering, Zika reflected on what happened. He could not forget the luminous figure and the words he had heard. For him, this was not a mere delusion. Convinced that he had experienced a miracle, Zika decided to dedicate part of his life to helping other pilgrims. He and his family founded an organization that provided support and assistance to people facing difficulties on the Camino de Santiago, as well as spreading his experience as a conversationalist. Zika's story spread quickly among pilgrims and inhabitants of the region. Many saw him as a symbol of faith and resilience. Even without imagining that, not long ago, he could be considered one of the most critical people in relation to spirituality. Her experience inspired others to seek the Camino, not just as a physical journey, but also as a spiritual path of discovery and life transformation. After all, Zika's life was never the same. Years later, in a special ceremony at the Santiago de Compostela Cathedral, Zika was honored for his dedication and service to pilgrims. Upon receiving recognition, he gave an emotional speech, thanking his family, the shepherds who saved him, and the mysterious luminous figure who gave him hope when all seemed lost. For Zika, the Camino de Santiago was not just a pilgrimage, but the manifestation of a miracle that transformed her life and the lives of many others. And so, the businessman who always sought and based himself on scientific answers and always said that work comes first, had a surprise that shook his structures. He found the greatest of forces after love, one might say. Faith saved him, and then, this human spirit transformed. He became a living witness of that. Miracles do indeed happen,